Okay, so board, thank you all for being here. We have a new member. Let's welcome Lisa Wolf to the board. Thank you for your service. Yay. We'll do the roll call, and then we'll get on to the, we'll do a quick review for public comment and matters not on the agenda, and then we'll get right to the business of election of the chair and the vice chair. So, roll call, Board Member Wolf. Here. Board Member O'Connor.
Here.
Board Member Little.
Present.
Board Member Johnson.
Here.
Board Member Blakemore.
Here.
And then is there anyone in the audience or on Zoom that has a public comment for items that are not on tonight's agenda? See none in the audience. JP?
And none on Zoom.
No on Zoom. All right. So that brings us to the election of chair and vice chair. My assumption is that we'll entertain a motion, whoever wants to make it. I guess we would start with chair. So we're looking for a motion from any board member.
I'll make a motion to appoint Amy.
I second.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Yay.
Let's make sure we have our microphones on. So, Amy Blakemore, chair. All right, now that we have a chair, Madam Chair, would you like to ask for a motion for vice chair? Just make sure we speak into the mic.
What do you mean?
Sidebar.
Oh, I see, okay.
Since the member with the most seniority, I feel should be asked first. Would you be interested? Okay.
So it has to be somebody new.
Okay. Patrick, would you be interested in doing
Sure.
this?
I make a motion that Patrick be the vice chair.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
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 All right, newly installed. Madam Chair, we do have one matters by staff item. We have Marisol here, and in the hope that we can get her out of here and not have to wait till the end. If you would find that acceptable, we can move on with the matters by staff item. She has her presentation, and then we have the materials out in front of you there.
Absolutely. Thank you, Marcel.
Representing the project team, we have Mr. Thomas Chu. Mr. Thomas Chu, you're welcome to come to the table. Okay, so we have a matters by staff item today for 901 Linden, Suite B. So as a brief recap, this is the suite in between Napa Auto and Guicho's along 9th Street. The board saw this project back in 2020. At the time, it was a property owner-led exterior improvement project for a vacant suite. During the review process, the board had numerous comments to help the project achieve a more cohesive composition and relate better to the building. Comments and topics discussed included carrying over the decorative facade elements of the Guicho's tenant suite, including the pop-out column trim, brickwork, and the black header element above the storefront windows. Exterior light style and locations. There was conversations about changes to the recessed entry, like updating the existing windows and the main door. They also talked about as you can see, the bottom rendering of the elevation was the original proposal. So they talked about changing the shape of those new storefront windows. They also talked about improving the alignment of the features overall on the 9th Street facade, so making sure that things like windows and other details align all the way from Guicho's to where Napa begins. Other recommendations were to improve the entry with decorative things like maybe potted plants, and then to do a nice new recoat for the exterior paint. Through several meetings with the board and staff, the project was approved and included larger storefront windows matching Guicho's in style, color, and height. They included the decorative facade column trim pop-outs on either side of the entry, the decorative header element over the entry, and the brick border. It included a revised lighting, exterior lighting style and locations, and the project team had proposed to swap out the entry door for a new one that matches Guicho's. The alignment, as shown by the yellow bar on the screen, shows that the cohesive alignment was an important part of the conversation, and ultimately that was achieved as shown on the plans. So now the building permit was issued last year for both a tenant-specific interior improvement for a new massage business, plus the exterior components proposed by the owner, reviewed and approved in 2020. And now the project is nearing the end of construction. And at our inspection, we noticed there were some differences between what was built and what was approved. So what the director is looking for from you, the board, is feedback on the changes, to evaluate the quality of construction and final as-built design, as well as what changes you would recommend to help make it more consistent with the original approval, or how to improve the as-built conditions consistency with the existing building. So here's a refresher on what the building looks like, or the elements that were to be carried through on the 9th Street facade. You can see the pop-out column trim element, the decorative brickwork, and the headers over the storefront entry and windows. So the first change observation is that the key elements of the Guicho's facade was carried over as proposed and approved, like the pop-out column trim. The brick isn't an exact match, but it is the same exact match in terms of size of the brick, but it's the same exact pattern. They also continued those same design elements above the 3 storefront windows, which wasn't originally part of the approval. And they did repaint to match existing as proposed and approved, which is a whitish color, which differs from Guicho's, but that's what we reviewed and approved back in 2020. The second element is the black header detail, shown and approved on the plans as being right above the storefront entry as a header, was constructed above the storefront entry, with more of a separation between the storefront entry and the header. Similarly, the header that was not approved over the storefront windows also installed at that same level, above the windows, not up against the windows as a header. It results in a different look and a different effect than the headers on the Guicho's tenant suite. As far as the color goes, it is more glossy, or otherwise has a different finish, but it is painted black. Here's a close-up of that detail. It is surface mounted with an exposed edge. The windows are definitely similar. There are some differences. It's a bit of a rougher install, but it does generally match. As far as lighting, the lighting that the board reviewed and approved was installed, except for the ceiling light in the recessed entry. That was swapped out with staff approval during the building permit plan check process, because the original one that was scoped and approved by the board was just too intense. And so we swapped it out for something that was smaller and more appropriate for that size entry. What's different is the location the lights were installed. The board had specified the location both vertically and horizontally along the wall, but ultimately they were installed on top of the pop-out column trims and at where the storefront entry ends. So lastly, the storefront entry itself, it was repainted black. It seems to be the same kind of black that maybe that was used on the header elements. To my recollection, we hadn't approved a different color in the recessed entry. The main upgrade that we had approved in that entry was the changing out of the door to a black frame door matching guichos. This is no longer the intention of the project team. They would like to leave it as is, or perhaps paint it to match the guicho's door. As a side note, we will have them remove any film that's been applied to the windows or doors. So just to recap, what the director is looking for is feedback on these changes that were made in the field, your evaluation of the finished quality of construction and final as-built design. What changes would you recommend to make it more consistent with your original approval? Or recommendations on how to improve the as-built condition consistency with the existing building as originally intended for overall cohesion. With that, we can take any questions you might have about the project, its history, or past approvals.
Any questions for staff?
Can you go over the light change again?
Yeah. So on the bottom here, the approved elevations show the lights centered between the recessed entry and the new windows, and on this side between the recessed entry and the existing guicho's window. It was specified by the board that they be centered and in line with the top of the windows. They were previously proposed a different light and much closer and lower on the first version preliminary review. And so ultimately they were installed right here on top of the column pop-outs, as shown in the picture, right where the recessed entry ends, where the header was supposed to go.
We can see that on page 5.
I'm not sure what page on your packet. Change number 4.
Any other questions for staff?
Yeah, I've got just one quick one. In a couple of the images, you can see the mechanical equipment that I think is the Guicho's mechanical equipment on the roof. Is there anything new in this project on the rooftop?
No, Mr. Chu can confirm, but there was no approved additional rooftop equipment proposed as part of this project.
Cool, thanks.
Any other questions for staff? I have a question for the applicant. The choice to make the entryway black, is that, what was the motivation there? Just curious.
Can we push your button there so your green light comes on? Just down below that. There you go.
You mean the entry door? The entry door right now at the old building was white, and I thought it is a contrast to the black, but we can definitely paint it black. But I thought it looks better, sticks out a little better.
So just to clarify, I think you were asking about the walls in the recessed entry. I think he's talking about the door itself.
The wall, I thought it was on the plan that needed to be painted, right? It was really, it's an old building, so we thought we painted over. It looks much better that way.
And George, is this you? No? Okay. Well, I was just curious about the dimension, I mean, the dimensioning for the header. It looks to me like the decision was made for the header location to match the dimension between the brick and the header that occurs on the Guicho side, and it just happened that that ended up being higher than what the existing conditions are for the, yeah, exactly. So-
Right.
So it,
Aligns with the old one.
Yeah.
Even though the old one was underneath the window opening itself, this one is not.
Smarty. Okay. Any other questions?
So is the intent to have the frame black or the existing stainless look? Is that stainless or white?
Of the door,
Yeah.
they proposed and we approved for them to change it out to a new door that matches Guicho's. They would like to either keep the aluminum frame, or if the board would prefer, consider painting it to match the finish of Guicho's.
Yeah, it seems the theme was to match Guicho's all the way around. Yeah, right.
That's correct.
Yeah, I guess that's what I would suggest.
So what is our, we just get,
So this is so director, we're looking for your feedback from the director. So what I'm hearing, correct me if I'm wrong, and Marisol can confirm, is that you're comfortable with the existing conditions as presented today, with the exception of the door, aluminum door to be painted black to match, which was the intent to match Guicho's, and that would match the installed window frames as well. Does that sound right? Correct.
No.
No, I mean, go ahead and correct then.
My concern is if it's up to, is it back to us now? My concern is that we have the black stripe floating, whereas the rest of the building has the black stripe terminating the openings from the sidewalk on up, or whatever you want to call it, the sill on up. So my suggestion would be to, and I really am kind of uncomfortable with the three floating windows underneath the big black stripe on the left-hand side of the entry there. None of the other openings in the building seem to be separate windows underneath the stripe. They're all recessed in a black, pretty much black manner as far as the photographs are concerned anyway. So I'll just put it to the board to see what they think. I kind of think that the vertical dividers between the big three windows there and the header dividing it to the, separating the black stripe above should all be painted black or dark color, so it looks like the rest of the building has simple recessed openings above the banner up above. I do like your addition of the tile above the three windows.
Yeah, we did it by mistake,
That
but
was-
I thought it was,
Yeah,
it looks
that's
better.
That was a good idea.
Yeah.
We should have thought of that ourselves. But that'd be my only comment with the black door.
is there
Anybody else agree
additional
with me?
input from the board?
Or am I all washed up?
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think to bring it back around, that we would be supportive of the project with the addition of a black painted stripe above the windows and the entry door
And the dividers.
and the dividers between the
two
windows,
dividers, yeah.
as well as the space between the header and the entryway,
Recessed entry, yeah.
and paint the existing
Aluminum.
aluminum door black.
Black.
Chair, does it help to refer to page 9 to show that header and the standards?
I make a motion for that, as stated.
Yep, just Marisol, are you clear with that? So filling in the space there, painting black between the header where the header kind of floats now, right? And then painting
And our
the
dividers.
vertical plaster white, painting that black divider.
Are you okay with it being glossy black, or do you have a preference on the finish or type of black? Okay, I think it's less glossy. Okay.
Can we ask the applicant why he left it white? What was the reasoning that you chose to make the changes?
The white of what? The door?
So you chose to leave this white and leave a white line right there rather than join the black right onto the top of the windows.
Yeah, no reason, just the contractor probably didn't read the plan right.
That never
So,
happens.
Just a oversight, I guess. It's not our decision, it's just the contractor did it and according to the plan, and maybe he didn't see it, read the detail right, so.
That's why planning staff goes out before final occupancy to make sure we get these things coordinated.
Yeah,
It's just bigger windows. So
it's continuous to the top of the window.
So inside the front door, because that's a lot of black.
Yeah. It's windows.
No, the
Guicho's is
it's
windows.
talking about this.
Guicho's equivalent of that wall is glass.
the white and the walls and then the doors. That's a lot of black.
Yeah. Fair public comment there.
See, that's whereas that one's black. And it's black around the corner, so he should be black also.
Yes. Okay, so are we?
We're still good with the comments that we got so far?
We're still good with comments. Is there a concern, am I hearing a concern from the board that painting the black between the header and the entryway, since the entryway is already black, is too much black?
No,
I'm just, obviously the windows are a different size than the original spec windows. So they went in differently. So now we're just talking about paint. So is that what we want, is paint? Just paint on plaster? Is that what you're looking for?
I don't know that they're different than the original windows.
My way of looking at it is that the opening of glass is basically a black plane on a white building. This will take the black up to the board line, which is the way it is around the rest of the building. Even though the glass comes up to the board line elsewhere, this will take the black up to the board line, that's all I'm saying. Which then relates to the banner above.
Okay,
Yeah, it looks like in the
I get it.
the original approval we had dimensionally, it looks like they're the same.
And I think, at nighttime, if lights are on, it's going to look like a small window compared to the front windows that are bigger. So it's going to look different.
6 or 8 inches small, yeah.
So, it's,
At night you won't see the black above.
Is the board okay with the color of the recess entry?
yeah, so that was I think a fair public comment is that cove is all black. And maybe we're getting a little too precise here, but the equivalent space on Guicho's is glass. It's not.
I was going to suggest that. So if you look on the second to last page on 8, although Guicho's entry alcove is windows, black windows, effectively it's a dark black, right?
It just makes for a quieter composition on the wall.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think we're feeling good with our comments? There's no, we don't.
We'll take those comments back to the director. Richard wants to make a motion.
For the next one. All right.
We'll have 2 opportunities for motions coming up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Nice work.
Thank-
Otherwise.
All right, so next on the agenda tonight, we have the FAF new residents, 5559 Calle Arena. That's it. It's on you tonight, huh? Okay. Well, we have every faith in you, George. Any ex parte communication on this item or the other?
No, not me.
I'm good.
No? Lisa? Board Member Wolf? Any ex parte? Thank you.
All right, good evening, ARB members and new board member Wolf, welcome. Tonight we're doing the final approval of the FAF new residence at 5559 Kai Arena. And as some of you may recall, this is a new house on the vacant lot on Kai Arena, which parallels the train tracks in the Concha Loma neighborhood. And it's at the end of Kai Arena that's closer to the Cayocho side. And the proposal is for a new two-story, 2,631 square foot single-family residence with an attached 401 square foot two-car garage for a total size of 3,032 square feet with a 238 square foot covered patio within the roof line of the structure. The maximum height is 20.7 feet above finished grade, and the project entails new walls, landscaping, fencing, and hardscape. Since the last time it was here for continued preliminary review, the ARB had some comments, and the applicant has revised the plans accordingly. The exterior siding color is now a light weathered gray instead of that very dark, almost black that was originally proposed with the preliminary. The windows facing the street and at the rear of the second story have been reduced in size, and thick posts and beams have been added to bring the windows down to a more residential scale. The roof overhangs have been extended from 2.33 feet to 3.18 feet at the deepest points. So it gives a little more of that shadowing effect to break up the elevations. The bollard lights that were deemed to have a non-residential feel have been replaced with pathway lights to be a more residential character. And then the low grasses that were proposed in the backyard have been replaced with deer grass, which grows to be about 4 to 5 feet tall. And then here's the revised elevation. So the large one on the bottom is the proposed for final elevations, and then the one up here is what you saw at continued preliminary. So the highlights here have the red star. So we've got the new windows with the post and beam detail to break them up, facing the street here, and then the new lighter siding color. Here's the west elevation. Again, the lighter gray siding color. And then here you can see these extended eaves. You can see there's a little bit more of an angle here than previously proposed here and here, and then actually also up here, but you can't see it too well on this side because that's on the other side of the house, here and here. And then this is that covered, the 238 square foot covered porch area. And here's the east side. Again, we've got the new lighter gray siding, and then here's those extended roof eaves here and here, and here and here, which a little sharper angle because they extend out further. So here and here, you can compare that. And then on the south side, or the state park train tracks elevation, here is the second story window with the new post and beam. And then they did carry that feature onto these, the lower first floor rear windows, but just with not the beam going all the way down, just so they'd have that nice view. But in the second story window did carry it. And then here's the updated colors and materials. Basically everything's the same, except again the lighter finish for the siding. And here's the proposed exterior light fixture for the residents. Black, it appears to staff to be night sky friendly. And then the landscaping plan, the change was to add the deer grass here and take away those lower growing grasses to have the taller element here. And here's that new deer grass right here. And then the outdoor lighting plan was updated. These are the new pathway lights that they're proposing. And the pathway lights, they would be on the sides of the house here, on the sides of the house here, and then here leading up to the front entry. And here's the renderings for the new colors, the new siding and the new windows. From the street looking southeast, looking southwest from the street, looking northwest from the rear, like at the train tracks, looking northeast from the rear, right about where the train tracks are, as the train comes by. And then looking northeast from above, like a drone shot or bird's eye view. And you can see the big windows with the nice views there in the interior courtyard. So the summary of issues for comments tonight are the revised window sizes and locations, the proposed exterior light fixture, confirmation that it is night sky friendly, the night lighting for the new pathway lights and the lighting plan for the hardscape and landscape areas, the architectural style and materials, and overall neighborhood compatibility. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Cindy.
You're welcome.
George, did you want to present anything for the project?
I think they, all the issues you guys have, sorry.
Thank you.
I think all the issues that were brought up on our last meeting, I think we kind of addressed most of them and tried to adapt the project to meet everyone's expectations and requirements. And I guess this is it. This is what we finally came up with, which I hope you guys are happy with.
Okay, any questions from the board for the applicant or staff?
I have a question to staff. Cindy? Yes. In the records, I may not have said it loud enough, but I think I recall saying something about having a band underneath the second-story windows that is a different material or different texture of the siding than the upper part of the second-story wall. Can you find that anywhere in those records? Or shall we just go on and say that I'll make that recommendation?
Did you look through the minutes from the prior meetings?
Of course not.
Okay. Let me look through the minutes from the prior
reading
meetings
from
real
the
quick.
minutes here.
Yeah, I guess it's immaterial at this point
Oh.
in time. We can verify it later if we need to take the time to do it. Thank
Okay.
you.
Richard, which part was it? The by the garage beam or the?
Yeah, what exactly is your comment? We'll just kind of start new.
On the second floor addition, underneath the windowsill, wrapping the whole second-story addition with a different
Oh, different material.
or different siding texture.
Yeah, I recall that.
The bottom of it?
I do.
I,
Yeah.
I think I found it, Richard. So he felt the 2-foot windowsills on the second-story office were odd and should be raised for privacy reasons. Does that sound like it?
I think that was my comment, actually. I think.
Then I'm not seeing it.
I do recall that. We're just making a new.
Oh, was it? Oh, I'm sorry, Patrick. You're right. That was yours. Board Member Johnson also said the second-story floor height was too tall and should be lowered. No, that's not it either.
Just making a new
Didn't say it
comment.
loud enough. It's not a major issue, but we can talk about when it comes to comments by board.
I have one thought. The project description, the last sentence talks about the plan set has not been updated to reflect the lower finished floor elevations. Can we clarify what those lower finished floor
Yeah, do you have your
elevations
plans
are?
with you?
Yeah,
Okay.
2 or 3 places it could show up. I'm just not sure what it is.
Yeah, they just didn't update the civils after because they dropped the finished floor elevations of the house a couple times through the
Right.
process. But the civils haven't been updated. So if you looked at the civils, you'd think the house was sitting higher than it is. So if you go to sheet A 1.0, the first floor plan,
Yep.
you'll see there that the finished floor is at 36.75
Yep.
in the kitchen is where I'm looking. Okay, then when you go over to the civils on sheet C1 of 5, and you see the finished floor is called out at 37.75. So that's what that note is about, to just let you guys know not to pay attention to the finished floor
Yeah.
elevations of the civils.
So I guess just as we approve it, the note is to make them match.
It's basically a disclaimer in the staff report so that you guys are aware that the civils are going to have to be revised to lower that, which will probably change the grading a little bit too.
Thanks. That's all.
Okay, any other questions? Now turning to public comment, do we have anybody from the public who would like to speak? Looking at you, Tyler. All right, anybody on Zoom?
Thank you, Chair Blakemore. No one on Zoom.
All right, bring it back to the board. Who would like to start? All right, Board Member O'Connor.
Yeah, I think it's addressed all the feedback for sure. And I was trying to think about how to make my next comment, so I thought I'll make it funny, or try anyway. But I think the elephant left the room, and grew a beard on the way out of the room, about the second floor. And I just clarified to everybody that it's not the purvey of the ARB to make decisions about compliance with, defunct, neighborhood guidelines. So that issue is gone. And having said that, I'll, convert my opinion to support of the project, as I voted against it several times, notwithstanding all of that water that went under the bridge. So I could do a great job, and I'm sure George will do it justice like he always does. So thanks.
All right, thank you. Board Member Little?
I appreciate them reducing the size of the windows out front, especially it's much more residential in appearance now. The one thing that I'm still concerned about, and maybe it's because the applicant doesn't live here, is this covered patio. It's covered, and then they have the 8-foot wall on the side. It's gonna be so stinking dark and cold in there. And I can see, why we would consider putting the roof over that, but, we really enjoyed sunshine a lot, and I just think they're gonna be unhappy with all that darkness. And, so I just, if they could just, use umbrellas or retractable awnings, I think they'd be happier with it. And I forgot to turn the mic on. But George, you get the general gist that I just think it's gonna kind of be a dark tunnel for them there, especially with the tall wall on the side there on the west side.
On the neighbor side, yeah.
Yeah.
I think, again, the use for a lot of that area right there is just gonna be for them actually to be able to, exercise and things like that, covered, equipment, things out there. So they kind of want an outdoor kind of usable space that's permanently covered, I guess, in that area, since the whole patio is extended. But again, that dining room and that outside area here is probably where they're gonna get, I don't know if they'll get a lot of sunlight in between those two, to be honest, in between that, with the 8-foot
Yeah,
wall, even
it's
if it
gonna be
didn't have a
really
lid
dark
on
in
it.
there.
I just think even if there was nothing on there, they're not gonna get much. So I think the purpose of it was for their personal uses, being able to use that space, yeah. Because there's a 2-story, don't forget, coming right next
Right,
door to
right.
here. Now, these guys have
Yeah, I
a
recall that the
two-story
neighbor
addition.
actually had asked for the taller wall.
Yeah,
So,
because they're
yeah, I
looking,
could see that.
their taller, their 2-story extension is right here, looking straight down at that
Right.
part of it.
Yeah.
And to interrupt real quick, I do have Mark, the owner. He'd like to make a comment. Would that be okay if I put him through?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Mark, I'm going to unmute your mic and you're free to talk.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Not to be funny, but I'm from Cleveland, and so we don't get to see the sun when we live there most of the year anyways, so that's normal for me. But you hit the nail on the head after that comment. This was out of respect for the neighbor's request, and we raised the wall to 8 feet to accommodate any privacy concerns that they had. So we do obviously want to use the outdoor space as much as possible. And that's more of a covered, I would say, congregation. It's not for parties. It's for, eating dinner and being outside as much as possible. So we want to be out of the elements, but, still feel like we're, within, I guess, some sunlight, if you will, depending on, the time of the year. So, you read that comment then after that, so I raised my hand before I heard that.
Thank you very much.
Sure.
We'll bring it back to the board. Board Member Wolf, would you like to weigh in?
Not yet.
Okay. Board Member Johnson.
Oh, let's see. I have a couple of questions. On the floor plan, you show the recessed trashing area on the side here. I guess it's the east elevation. On the east elevation, I don't see any of that drawn. Is it blind doors?
Across the trash cans you're talking about?
No, they're just not shown on the
Yeah.
elevation.
Because that wall plane of the recess is the same wall plane as the upper level recessed wall of the second-story addition. So that extension of that roof may or may not want to go across that opening, I don't know. It might help break up that side elevation architecturally, I'm trying
You're
to
saying
say.
carrying that over right here, Richard? Carrying the roof line over the top of that part?
All right.
I think we extended them too, right?
It's actually already shown that it's gonna just go through right there.
Yeah.
I think what
Well,
Board
I'm
Member
saying-
Johnson's
I'm
saying is
saying
eliminate it.
that,
So it,
that part
so
of
it
it,
would
you're
give
saying.
some variability to the
because
elevation.
Oh, to break it up?
it's open to the weather anyway, so you're not gonna really protect it anyway, and it helps break up that long railroad car look to that side elevation as far as I'm concerned. The other changes you did were great, and then again, I'm still really concerned about the overpowering effect of the second-story addition above the garage, proportionally. That's why I had mentioned, I thought previously, that around the second-story addition, you might do a wainscot, maybe fur it out 1.5 inches or something like that with a little water table line on it, and just change the direction of your siding.
Yeah.
Something like that, to make it two pieces instead of one big one sitting on top of the little tiny guy below you.
Mm-hmm.
It'll help break up that massing of that
So the
second
same
story.
material, but just
But
maybe
right
even a
around
different.
the base of your windowsills. And if it doesn't, if the windowsill doesn't match, who's going to carry it a little bit there,
Yeah.
one way or the other, it's okay. That would help a lot, I think. And then, it's going to charge you extra for plan checking, because on your sections, you call out top of plate of the second-story elevation at 7'6", which is what I asked you to do, is to lower that second-story floor wall height. But you didn't lower the roof. You just drew a dotted line in there at 7'6", and the roof sits on something on the wall height that's 6 or 8 inches higher than that. So if you would lower the roof, please, to the stated plate height of 7'6", that would be nice, and that would also help that proportion of the stairs.
So that roof, the elevation, that was a 312, was it? Or what was the pitch on that?
No, it's 312.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about that. Plate height.
Oh, on,
That's the wall.
No,
On
but
a
I'm not talking about
4.0?
From the wall, from the, I thought you were talking about above the plate height, we had a different slope or a different pitch of the roof.
No, you have a higher, you call it a plate height, which is supposed to be top of wall.
Uh-huh.
The dotted line goes through the middle of the wall, and there's still another 6 or 8 inches above that line to the roof line, which is the plate height. So lower the plate, or lower the roof to that plate height, as you called it out.
Yeah.
That'll help that exterior elevation.
Yeah.
Also.
I guess
Good.
that's six inches or so? would you
Yeah,
think?
6
about
or 8
that,
inches,
if
yeah.
that.
Probably.
Probably like 4 inches.
No, it's more like 6 or 8.
Is that- Okay.
Okay, Richard.
But that plate height will be the 7'6", like we
Top
talked
of
about.
wall.
Yeah.
That the roof sits on will be 7'6" above the floor, which is then 10'1" above the floor below. Because you called it out as 9 plus 1 foot 1.
6 inches, okay, because it's like.
I think that's the extent of my intrusion.
Thank you, Board Member Johnson. Board Member Wolf, would you like to go now, or would you like to go after me?
I'd like to just listen.
You got it.
You weren't involved in this one, so it's hard to participate in this one, yeah.
Okay.
I like your materials and all that. That's
Yeah,
good.
I think the dark lighter and stuff is gonna kind of mingle with, it looks so much natural and it's gonna really blend in. It's gonna be awesome.
Great.
It's gonna look
Good
really.
job.
Thanks.
So does the overall height of the building drop with these two things, the lower plate or the lower,
Excuse me?
does the overall height drop now quite a bit? Because the
because the
Your
plate-
point, and then the earlier one,
Drop down.
If the pitch remains the same, then it would be lowered by that approximately 6 inches.
but then there's also the grade level issue.
No, that's why I put that note in the staff report, because the elevations, the architectural drawings are correct for the height. If you were to look at the civils, it would falsely be a foot above. But the actual drawings are correct.
Okay,
Okay,
thanks for being patient.
with regard to the landscape plan, I appreciate the applicants responding to our comments previously. However, I'm still noticing, and I needed to do what Board Member Johnson suggested and look back at the notes to make sure I did mention this last time, which I did. Your water efficiency worksheet is indicating that you're going to irrigate the lawn on drip. That just isn't possible. It is also saying that it's a 0.6 hydrozone plant factor, which is also incorrect for a lawn. No matter how efficient a lawn is, it's still a 0.7, and that's just the way it is. And I assume with the amount of lawn that you have here, the reason that's happened is so that you can stay under your maximum allowed water, because you just barely got it. So if you correct it to what it should be, you're going to be over, which I think is a great opportunity to maybe get rid of some of the lawn you have, which I did mention last time, that the lawn around your olive tree in the front that's right adjacent to the bioretention basin is going to die if you put it in there next to that. So maybe don't surround the olive with lawn, maybe pull the lawn away from that.
I agree.
And I also see that you've got, and I'm sorry if I didn't be clear about this last time, but you've got a whole section of lawn that's between the ornamental grasses on the beach side. And there's no reason for that I can see. If you want something walkable, a diamante or some other ground cover would work just as well, and you wouldn't have to be watering and irrigating and mowing and fertilizing and all that. And then the section next to the driveway, there's another additional space of lawn that just doesn't seem to be necessary. It's not, yeah, I'm all for lawn when you can kick a soccer ball on it and do usable, viable things on it, but there's just no reason to have it there. So my suggestion to the applicant would be, and if it helps further the cause, we can do this after the fact, but I do think you need to eliminate a couple of these portions of lawn and actually do your calcs correctly so that we see, correctly how much water is going to be used for the project. And I just don't think you should kill an olive tree just for the fun of killing an olive tree. Those are my comments. Should we, anyone?
Sort of pea gravel or something in there or something.
Yeah,
like
just
that, yeah.
pull it away, give
Yeah,
it some
take a-
root area. And the civil is showing the bioretention right here. So all the water is getting sent right there, and it's just gonna sit and it's just gonna rot.
So it would seem, Chair, that their landscape architect should go back and redo their water use calculations using the right factor, and then they would have to back in how much lawn, because that's going to drive how much lawn area they're going to need sod. That's going to have to be removed to meet their calc. And then at that point, what's left over is what's left over, and then they can
Yeah.
pull back in those areas you suggest.
And you can prioritize where you want it. But yeah, that's exactly right.
Would have been caught in plan check anyway, should have been anyway.
I'll leave it up to you, Cindy, how you want to do it. Sounds like if they could go back and do the water calcs and then figure out how much area they can remove, then you can take it back to the chair and have her review the updates to the planting plan.
Yeah, and that could be a condition of any motion made tonight.
Yeah.
And as you said, I mean, it should be caught at plan check.
Would this go back, so this would entail another meeting, or this is just a note? Okay.
No, even my changes you can take to staff and they can verify you made the changes properly.
They just have to be made before it goes for the building permit submittal, along with all the other conditions of approval.
So I think we have.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have seen the project a number of times, and I think the comments we've made tonight can be reflected in the plan that gets submitted. For permitting.
And just so when you make your motion, whoever makes the motion, if you can restate just for the record clearly, I got the landscape, that was clear, and then we got the plate height reduction. If there were anything else that needs to make in your motion, make sure just make sure
You ready?
you get that in there.
I would like to make a motion. Motion is to final approval based on 3 conditions, I think. One is the second floor roof versus plate height change to harmonize those. Is that concise description? Second is the landscape recommendations as stated. And then the third, I don't know if it applies or not, but the third is the harmonizing the finished floor elevation between the plan set and the construction drawings.
So there'll be one more.
The fourth one would be the wainscoting
All right.
around the second story.
Correct.
Below the windowsill elevation, and dilation of the roof over the trash enclosure. And show the trash enclosure on the elevation.
But we're saying the wainscoting could be the same material, just turned in,
Yeah.
just in a different direction or something.
So
Something like that.
amend the motion to include
4.
Yeah, there's 5.
Well, it's 5 if you break up the eve.
What was the third one then? I missed it because I thought.
Finish floor reconciling, so what I've got, well, let's just repeat and make
Yeah.
Let's repeat and make sure we got the record clear. Final approval with the conditions to reduce the second floor plate height as pointed out by Board Member Johnson, to reconcile the water use calculations and the relevant reduction in sod area that Chair Blakemore can review, to reconcile the finished floor with the ultimate civil plans before they go through plan check.
Oh, okay.
To make the required changes or the requested changes from Board Member Johnson on the wainscoting of the second floor, and then finally to break up or to remove the little eyebrow roof over the trash area and where they have the AC units. And show that, right.
I'll second that motion.
I didn't get to do.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, you guys. I appreciate all the comments and the time you guys put into all these.
The elephant grew a beard
Yeah,
and left the room.
that was a funny one. I like
Well,
that.
I tried.
That's okay.
Thought hard.
I'll do it.
Yeah, I had to say something.
Okay. All right, we got our second project for the evening, the Palms renovation. Any ex parte on the Palms?
No.
Thank you, George.
None.
Ex parte? No, no, no?
Ex parte.
How are you? Good.
You're doing a great job because you remembered ex parte and you remembered Zoom comments. So I think that's all you need. Yeah, I think that's all you need to do. Well, thank you all. We are back for final review of the Palms renovation project. As a quick reminder, where we've been. So we had initially your board first saw this project. I put 25. That should have been 24. Back in July of 2024, at a concept level, your comments were overall supportive, including the requested modifications for the minor height and front setback along Linden encroachments. Your board's primary concern at that initial meeting was related to the noise and the intensity of use on the rooftop. And at that meeting, you requested the applicant to install story poles before returning for preliminary review. Then project came back in September. story poles were installed. Some minor revision to the plan updates in response to your comments. Generally, the plans were very close to what you had initially reviewed at the concept level. Again, your board had expressed overall support for the project, including the minor modification request for the height and the setback, and your recommendation to proceed to the Planning Commission with a strong recommendation to the Planning Commission to require condition of approval to prohibit amplified music on the rooftop. Subsequently, the applicant we went to Planning Commission on December 2nd. The Planning Commission unanimously approved the project, including the recommended condition to prohibit live music on the rooftop, although allowing low-volume speakers, which were in the applicant's noise study that they provided as part of the project. So Planning Commission was comfortable with the language of that condition. And there, interestingly, there was quite a bit of discussion. I wasn't prepared for it, but it was quite a detailed discussion of the sign and the text along the Linden facade that I came out of left field for me, but it was a very detailed discussion, got into a lot of detail, and we had a public comment letter that for which I'm going to distribute to y'all, and we've got one for you too. It's the same one as from John Wolbrandt that had provided at the Planning Commission. So he couldn't make it, didn't want to make the drive down, understandably, in the rain, so he called Nick and said, hey, can you just make sure that the ARB members, we assume that you saw that in the minutes, but just to make sure that you all had the opportunity to review the comment that he previously provided to the Planning Commission. So in response to your preliminary review comments, the applicant has specified a darker color for the rooftop elements, which is a Benjamin Moore Classic Gray. Quite a bit of work went into the rear railing and stair design. So as you recall, on the Yucca side, on the alley side, it was quite an elaborate arrangement and ornamental ironwork. And that's been simplified. You'll see that. So that first floor element has kind of been walled in now and reduced the overall amount of ironwork and railing, but yet keeping some in the second floor portion of it, and then the mechanical well that was at the rear of the bar structure now has a solid wall and then just a topper of wrought iron rail on top of that wall to carry it through. And again, I think the signage we'll get into, and the applicant I know has a presentation as well that focuses on the sign element. So as proposed in the plans you have this evening, the plans include a new powder-coated metal sign, which would replace the existing painted script on the Linden Avenue facade. That sign was, because again, we are dealing with a historically significant building, the sign was reviewed because this is a new element that the historians hadn't reviewed previously with the architecture, that they did review and provided a memo which is attached to tonight's staff report, indicating that the applicant's proposed sign would be compatible. And what the Planning Commission ultimately did was left it up to y'all. So we'll have, I'm sure, a robust discussion tonight about signage, but they felt comfortable with your board's ability to kind of weigh, all of these things and come up with what you feel is the most, compatible with the building and the historic nature of the building itself, and we'll go from there. And then, of course, we have a full landscape plan included. I will note that on the original plans that you see there, I had failed to recognize that there's an entry door, or there's a door on the 7th Street side and then in the back that didn't have light fixtures, and I know that's a building code requirement. So kind of late notice to the applicant team, they busted out some fixtures, and I've got that in my presentation, you'll see, and they've also got that in theirs. But otherwise, architecturally, and the details and things are things that you've seen essentially since the first time you saw it at the concept level. So no big surprises there. Exterior color and materials, again, the same as you have previously reviewed. The darker gray and all that, it'll probably show up better in the applicant's presentation. The distinction between the two kind of gray colors, but the Benjamin Moore is, I got this one, this one.
Right there.
So I'm sorry, Benjamin Moore Classic. That is for, right? Do I got that one right? Because there's two different shades. One more up.
One more up, yeah.
It's not presenting well in this.
No,
It's
showing
kind
white.
of white. We'll let them go through that, but it is a different shade and might have present better in the in the printed plans. That's better. Yeah. So that again would be the second story element. So that's the rooftop elements. Nothing else has changed with the proposed colors to the body of the building itself. Here we have the light fixtures. So staff was comfortable with this, kind of style of exposed glass because it's below the roofed front dining terrace. So we don't have any, issues with dark sky compliance there. In front of the annex, this pendant style, fully shielded, that is clearly would appear to be meeting the city's dark sky goals. Same with the one along 7th Street. I do have concerns, but the applicant, I'm sure, has a lot of detail as to why this gas one would work here in the back, and we'll let the applicant explain those details, putting it on them. We do have for the annex, as you recall, we have we have the main Palms building itself, and then the former portion of Oaxaca, which is actually part of this property. There's going to be kind of the retail to-go portion of it, and the applicants, for your consideration, proposing two different styles. One of the white, kind of I'm assuming kind of to match the proposed color and the brickwork for the palms, and then one that is a more contrasting charcoal option. So we'll get back to that in your comments, we hope. Rear stairs. So essentially, we've eliminated all of the ironwork that was here, and it was a bit. It was a bit. So if you add it all up, it did look, and I think, Richard, this is one of your main comments, if I remember correctly. So I think they've resolved that pretty simply here by just, having that be a wall now, and then carrying over still a top rail here, and then, of course, still railing up to the second floor element, because we don't want to do a wall, all the way up. And then the mechanical well at the rear, now they've got this wall here, and same kind of thing. So top rail to kind of carry that ironwork through. So if you compare to the previous plans that are in your package that the Planning Commission approved, but if you compare what they're proposing now with the previous version that you reviewed at preliminary, considerably less ironwork back there. So I think that would appear to be successful. So here it is in a rendering, just to get the overall kind of flavor for it. Signage. So essentially, there are three different kind of signs in play for this building, and we spent a lot of time. The Planning Commission did. So you have the historic Palms kind of text blocky. I don't even know what kind of font you would call that, but a very simple block kind of font painted onto the original building, obviously way prior to the 1960 edition. Then you have what we see, today, the script and larger and the colored, script kind of font. And then the applicant is showing here what you had seen previously, the previous iteration, which is, another kind of very simple font. And then finally the proposed, which is kind of an homage, to the existing. So a script, and I don't know what kind of font that is, but a script, and it's slightly smaller, as you can see, in terms of the lettering. And again, this would be a metal can type of signage. And so, and again, taking in consideration of the planning commission kind of they were circling around. We never got to like the bullseye, but we really like circled around it for quite a while. And, there was this mix of like, well, if we want to talk about historic, well, isn't, historic is like the original, painted sign of the original building. But from a history of the city of Carp and Linden, and I think one of the commissioners, I think it was Commissioner Salant, said, it should reflect what most of us remember about the building, which would be, kind of the one that's out there today. But again, it's entirely in your discretion. I'm sure the applicant's going to have some very convincing ideas of why their proposed sign is the best. Landscape-wise, I'll defer to Chair Blakemore and you design-eyed folks, but it looked really good to me. They had provided all of the relevant details. We have our experts here to go into those details, but it looked there were no major changes from what you had previously seen, just the required irrigation details and planting callouts and sizes and species and all of those things. So no surprises there either. And again, we have, proposed work that's going to go to refurbish the parkway on 7th Street, as well as the actual plantings on the property itself. And then we've got the plantings, our little planter areas up on the rooftop. Landscape lighting, we do have some washed up lighting here that I'd like you to comment on, but the other fixtures are pretty straightforward and just wayfinding. And those aren't up, are those? They're strapped in the tree, right? We just have the image the other way. Okay.
Yeah.
So they're strapped and pointing down.
Yeah, pointing down from the palms. The new palms. No, it's down.
It looks up if we turn the page upside down.
Yeah, we should have rotated the symbol. The image. So.
And I'm sorry, I forgot if that was called out on your lighting plan as downlight. It could be, okay. So summer, and sorry, Board Member Wolf, if I'm going really fast, because they've seen it so many times. I didn't want to make it a super long presentation, but we'll get back to any questions you might have. So what we're looking for this evening is the applicant's response to the ARB's preliminary review comments, the response to the planning commissioner comments related to the palm signage, and of course the relevant architectural details, lighting and landscaping, and overall compatibility with the downtown and small beach character. And that is it. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Bring it over to the applicants.
Great, thank you very much. I just want to take a minute to thank Brian, Mr. Banks, for your professionalism and your attention to detail and navigating us with your wise counsel through this process. I mean, truly, it's been amazing working with you, and thank you very much. We really appreciate it. We're excited to be here, thank you, and really appreciate your board and everything that you have done to help us also navigate through this process. It's gone quite well. We started less than a year ago, and here we are before you for final, and so we're very pleased to be here. I think Brian did a very complete presentation. There's not much for me to say from a land use planning side. I did want to mention that Tim Hazeltine, the project historian, is on Zoom when we get into the conversation about the signage and the script. And just one note on that, the project that we presented to you and ultimately to the Planning Commission showed the font that was most representative of the true historic Palms font, going back to the original hotel/restaurant. And so that's what we went with. I know Daryl Becker has a few things to say about that. We're really open. I mean, and so so we welcome your input on that. We want to honor the community and your board's, recommendation and preference for this. But Tim is also on the line and can weigh in on the history aspects of this. So with me is Daryl Becker, our project architect, and Elisa Reed, the project landscape architect, and I'll hand it over to them.
All right, thank you, Laurel. And again, I want to acknowledge Brian and staff. I think you guys have been amazing to work with and bringing us forward as expeditiously as you have. This is a community gem, this building, and our goal has been really a historical restoration of the building and taking it back with the goal of engaging the street in a more profound way, and we think we've done that with this front connection. There's a couple other things I want to mention because things get lost between this board and also the planning commission. We did put forth a number of landscaping changes before we went to the planning commission, and we did that with the intention of your comment. So there were things that were added to the landscape plan during that process. Architecturally, as we mentioned, the biggest points or the most profound points brought forward were softening the quantity of ironwork at the rear of the building. We think that we've come up with a successful solution. We think it looks markedly better, and just less busy, if you will. If we, I don't know if we want to turn to that. We don't really need to, but if you'd like to, we can
Sure.
go to that rendering, which is, well, we can see it here, I guess.
A 3.2
There it
is a
is.
drawing.
Yeah, 3.2. So it's really not out of character with what, on A 3.2, it's not really out of character with the historical elements. But we had that upper third level completely ironed out right where the hand is there. And we think by adding the wall that we also screened the mechanical equipment a lot more successfully. In the lower section, it just made sense to extend the plaster wall, and that allowed us to do that. So we're very comfortable with that. The only other real significant element was adding your comment regarding the color of the third floor contrast as opposed to going with the original white color all the way up. We did add a different darker color at the third level, and we think that we're successful with that. We're comfortable with that. We're open to even darkening it a little bit more. I brought an alternate color as well, but I'm happy with what we've achieved. And then we added the lights in, as previously mentioned. The main reason we have the fixture at the rear is we have gas lanterns at the front entrance to the building on either side, and we wanted to respect that at the rear as well. And this is a gas lantern. It doesn't put out a lot of lumens in the first place. There's just not a lot of cast of light. So
Is it true gas, or is it one of
it's
the?
a natural gas fixture. And so that was the idea there. It is screened from the top, so it's not going to be casting light upward in any way. What else did I miss? I think that's it, other than signage, that's sort of the last item, and
That was it.
we may want to, I'm not sure when it's appropriate to ask Tim to weigh in, but the signage for us originally was, when we first studied this building, is, what was historically here. And I had a conversation with Post Hazeltine about the history of the building, and this lower left image is what the original signage was in the building, which is a block font. And I think Brian stated it correctly. I think we were all sort of surprised when we were at Planning Commission. All of a sudden, we were talking about signage. And, it's really a matter of history versus, current history. And I think that there is a validity to argument that was brought up at Planning Commission by a few people. There was a couple people whose opinion was, well, we know the palms from the script language. And so, with a tremendous amount of sort of respect for that, I don't think we have an overwhelming, strong opinion of what should be there. The historical preference of what we proposed as the palms. You have to understand, when we approached this project, we actually had a discussion about whether we should label the building at all. And so, the signage on the building will likely be a restaurant name at the Palms. And so the Palms is a iconic building. Anybody in this region, if you say the Palms, they clearly know what we're talking about. So our early studies and presentation was the Palms in block font, because that was homage to the original history. What came up in Planning Commission was a discussion of, let's call it current history, which is the script. And then we have now created a new font presentation, which sort of does both. And we just wanted to talk to this board about that and work through that together.
And I'll just add, just to be clear, so we do have the Post-Hazeltine, memo, which analyzed the proposed signage. If it's wall painted, text sign, that could always be changed, so there's no historic impact. If for some reason we didn't go, in this direction and we went in another, there really wouldn't be any reason that we would have to go back to the historians for painted signage, because that can always be reversed and would not impact the historic integrity of the building. I think in this case, because, the sign, and it's a high quality sign material that they're proposing, make no mistake, but I think the context there is now we're adding, we're adding some depth, some structure, some different materials, and so they appropriately asked the historians to confirm that wouldn't impact the historic integrity. So all that being said, it's still kind of wide open and within your discretion, and I don't think any direction that's kind of playing within the boundaries established by the Planning Commission is going to get us into any historic issues.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for the applicant or staff?
What is the font that you're proposing? Is there a name for it?
I don't have the name for the font.
Is there a name?
I think there is.
Okay.
What's that?
We'll talk more about it in the next
Banana
section.
It's banana script, yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant or for staff?
Well, just the sign again, you say is it a backlit or interior lit?
No.
Metal for can?
It's just metal, extruded metal signage.
Oh, it's flat.
Applied.
It's a flat letter, maybe raised off the building
Correct.
an inch or two or
Correct.
something like
It's got some
Yeah,
depth
it's got some
to
depth
it,
to
yeah,
it.
but it's not lit. It's not like a can
There's relief to it.
lighted. Yeah.
That was my question.
Okay.
When was the Palms building originally constructed?
19
I just want to defer to Tim. and
1912.
we asked Tim.
Well,
Let's
well,
ask
it
Tim.
was rebuilt.
It was rebuilt.
rebuilt.
It was the hot
original was even
springs.
prior to
I
that.
was
think
the
this
Hot
is a
Springs
perfect
Hotel before.
segue to bring Tim on
3 stories.
from Zoom.
Earlier than
Tim, I see you're here in the audience. I'm going to go ahead and unmute your mic. All right, you should be able to talk.
Hello, I'm Tim Hazeltine. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, yes, there was a precursor building at the site that was from the 1880s. I don't remember the exact date. And it burned down in a fire. It was a wood structure. And so that was replaced in 1912 by the existing building, which is brick masonry, which housed the hotel, a restaurant, and a bank at one time. And regarding the signage, the sort of block text that's depicted in the early 20th century photograph, that's sort of like sans serif. It doesn't have any sort of curly cues or really design elements. The signage from the restaurant era, the Palms restaurant era, is really a mid-century sort of mid-20th century design. It actually is fairly close to signage you would see on, upscale restaurants in Los Angeles and Hollywood, like Ciro's, or in Las Vegas at casinos like the Sands. So it has that sort of exaggerated script style. Either one is historically can be appropriate for the history of the building. As mentioned earlier, the earlier style references back to the original hotel. The second, more cursive script, of course, recalls the Palms restaurant. And because signage is so reversible, and it is, historically, signage on buildings changes fairly frequently. So, either kind of style would be appropriate. They're perfectly reversible. And I think we could understand that, 20 years from now or 15, the signage may change in the future. And we're supportive of the overall style and the material. And also we're very receptive to the fact it's not being lit up in some way that kind of exaggerates its presence.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have questions for Tim? Thank you, Tim, for the information.
You're welcome.
Question for Tim.
Oh, we have a question.
Tim, in
This is your, yeah, thank you.
Tim, in 1912, there was no gas. Is that correct?
I'm sorry,
In 1912, gas had pretty much been eliminated, so there wouldn't have been gas lanterns.
well, I am not sure in Carpinteria. The transition from gas to electric, took a long while, a longer while than it would in a really major community, like Los Angeles, for example. So, it's always possible there was a gas fixture. We certainly didn't find any evidence of it. 1912, it's more likely everything was electric. But you do see a fairly extended transition period. Just as a side note, we did a study on a house near Alameda Park in Santa Barbara, and in the house, they still had the original gas fixtures. They had also added electric, but they had something that was fairly unusual that had survived, which was it was a floor lamp, but it was actually a gas floor lamp, and apparently it was the last one in Southern California, or in California, that was still existing. So there is a transition. But we had no evidence that there was a gas fixture on the building at any point in time, or at least the second hotel building.
Thank you so much. Are we good with questions? Should we turn over to public comment? Anyone from the public want to comment on this item? Seeing nobody, we'll bring it back to the board. Anybody on Zoom?
Yes, we actually do. We have a John in the audience. I'm going to go ahead and unmute your mic, and you go ahead and address the council.
All right, thank you.
You should be able to talk. Can you go ahead and try to talk one more time, sir?
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me now? Oh, I'm on a satellite connection and way up in the mountains. I'm very sorry I could not be there to meet all of you in person. But thank you to Madam Chair and members and staff and those of you that are proposing this really exciting project. I'm blown away by just how wonderful I think it's going to be for the community, and kudos to you guys for making such a humongous investment in our downtown. So about the sign, and I am the one who kind of am the fly in the ointment here, admittedly. And I do have a background in historic preservation. So I'm quite aware of just how diligent your architect and your historian have been. So thank you for that. Now, I did hear at the Planning Commission meeting when Ms. Perez, or may I call you Laurel Perez?
Yes.
Repeatedly said that your intention was to honor and embrace the community sensitivities. And I really took that to heart. I believe you. And I think that a project of this magnitude, I think is going to be under a lot of scrutiny, continued scrutiny as it unfolds with members of the community that have been here for many, many, many years, particularly those who would have frequented and loved the Palms as it once was. And so with that in mind, I felt a desire to come forward and speak on behalf of trying to save the existing look of the Palms sign. Now, moving forward, I think that your idea of a powder-coated metal sign is a real improvement. I really applaud you for going in that direction. I would say, though, that your banana script or whatever cursive script it is, which might be available to someone who's done graphic design today, is not exactly following the lines of what is up there at the moment. And that's not to say that what is up there right now could not be improved. I think it could be cleaned up. However, I think it could be a little more accurate with an eye on being a preservationist of something that is, as your historian has mentioned, could potentially be considered mid-century. But I think if it was followed a little more closely and cleaned up a little bit and put into the powder-coated metal sign, I think that it would be handsome. I think that the community would go, well, gee, at least they kept the sign when they come in and see the glass atrium and elevators and all the other items that are being added. So, and I speak about being fond of this, as your historian put it, mid-century look, because those of us that are here today and were born and raised in Carp or came to Carpinteria and embraced the Palms as it was, we remember it fondly, and I don't know that there's anyone alive that would remember fondly the block letters. So, and I can tell you personal story, having grown up across the street. My grandfather's plumbing shop was directly across the street. So quite young, 5 and 6 year old, I would look out and actually see the front of the Palms. And quite frankly, I don't know what the signage was at that moment. But for the rest of my life, I've seen it as it is today. I think the reduced size, I think the powder coated metal, but I think leaning closer to the script that exists. And I think you're going to win over a few hearts and minds in the community if you were willing to do that. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much for the insight,
Thank you, John.
Okay, any other public comment on Zoom?
No more public comments on Zoom. Thank you, Chair Blakemore.
Thank you. Guess we bring it back to the board at this time. Who would like to start?
Sure.
Board Member Johnson.
No, I think you've done a great job. I'll eat my words on the wrought iron rail on the back. That's an improvement, what you did do there. I noticed it's open from the side as a wrought iron rail, so approaching it from the west side or the north side, you could actually see some more of the wrought iron. I was curious as to what it's a half light up and then another switch back up. What's going to happen underneath that first run, if it's going to be enclosed, or whether we're going to harbor unwarranted occupants in the end, or whether you're going to close that up. But it's something to think about.
I think that will be enclosed. It'll most likely be the electrical room.
Closed riser and all that. Okay, I think you hinted at maybe this third floor would be a little bit darker than the color selected here. Probably a good idea to go in that direction. We did that on a rooftop antenna thing down here on the industrial park, and it really worked well to help recess it, the massing, and separate it from the building itself from below it. All that's cool. I love the outdoor seating on the street side, Linden. It's going to be very socialized, much compared to what it was before. That's a super awesome improvement. And of course, the rooftop is a great idea, along with harp music being allowed, and no loud drums and trumpets except on Fiesta Day. The sign. Sure, you probably could maybe explore the mid-century I Love Lucy script, you know, that kind of flamboyant but still subtle thing. I shouldn't even say this, but I didn't even know there was a sign up there. But anyway.
Wow.
That's on the planning commission.
All right, you know, some things are important and some things are important. I think that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Board Member Little?
Okay, as you recall, my main concern was with the rooftop and what was going to happen up there. So when I looked at A0.5, I see this live roof, and it just freaks me out. There's such a nice grass area there.
Oh, no.
And that's not what it's going to look like, fortunately. I presume it's not going to be that. So looking at the actual landscape plan.
That would not be the safety thing you were looking for.
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's,
No
Could
razor
run right off.
wire or electrical fence or anything like that.
That was on the material board.
Yes, I know.
The inspiration.
that's
Right.
symbolic.
So I'm glad to see that there's lots of spiky, sharp plants up on that rooftop to constrain my grandkids from getting close to the edge. So I appreciate that, and I think it's a great improvement, opening up from the street side. It'll be very inviting to everybody to come in. I'm glad that the planning commission kind of nixed the mural on the side. I just didn't see that working out particularly well. And you can save the money on that and make the script sign in the metal stand out. I think that's great. And I do recognize that sign as I walk down the opposite side of the street. So, I don't know why, but I look up and I see that sign.
And board member, when you say script, like we're talking about getting closer to the mid-century idea?
Yeah,
Okay.
to the existing script,
Yeah,
right.
got it.
The gas lights, it just seems like out of place for what it is. So I think we could probably do without those. But overall, I really look forward to it. Are we going to be able to barbecue our own steaks?
Big question. It's a question that comes in every time.
And there's no dance floor, so a lot of people will be disappointed in that. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Just one thing on the gas lighting. Personally, I kind of think the gas lighting is kind of nostalgic and does relate back to an old world set of time and place.
Thank you.
All right, Board Member O'Connor?
Yeah, great job. Totally in support. Just a few additional comments. Back stair, I think, is great. I think that really makes a big difference, and it creates the same feel as the front of the building in a way. It's sort of the timeliness of it. We talked about the gas. I like the gas too. I think it harkens back to a time. I live in an old house here in Carp, and there's a gas fixture inside our house that was original. We don't use it, but it's at the stairwell going upstairs. So I think it is, something that can work. One thing that hasn't been commented on, but was left that you presented as an option, is the color of the annex.
Right.
And I, for one, would go with the white. Maybe if it needs to be offset somehow, maybe a shade of white. But I think going dark starts to get it, out of the time period. So I would go for one, would go for white. The sign, the font feels, the proposed font feels, I think banana script is kind of a good name. It feels a little, and this, I don't mean this to be critical, but it feels comical, you know, and not terribly serious in a way. So I would actually go a step further than everybody's comments, and I would just make the same sign. Just do the same sign. To the point it can change, and it may change. But for the purpose of introducing this thing back into the community, I would just go with the exact same thing and make it, you know, the iron and, you know, offset the whole thing. It doesn't need to be painted, but if people saw that, that's, you know, as you've noticed, that's what people kind of focus on. So I would take it that far. And otherwise, you know, I'm glad it's moving along quick. Nice job.
All right. Thank you. Board Member Wolf?
Thank you. I haven't been involved in the preliminary reviews, but in terms of the things we're talking about, I'm not sure if the architectural board comes at you with a consensus or we're allowed to offer differing opinions. I do have a different opinion. I really like the banana script. I know it's very trendy right now. And it is comical. It's Ren and Stimpy. It is absolutely, you're right on, but it's very warm and fuzzy right now and so in style to use that font. So I happen to really like it. I also recognize that your restaurant is a new project. It's a new building. It's cool that you're even using the name The Palms at all. And so the fact that you're tweaking it a little bit and updating it, I think it's great. I love the name The Palms, but I'm not at all attached to the old script. In terms of natural gas, I don't like it because that was eliminated in Santa Barbara in 1896 for fire reasons, especially the one on the back. That back alley is a different story at night. It's a different group of people cruising up and down that alley. And we've all seen it a long time. That's going to be the first thing that's broken. And then there's going to be gas, just gas, no flame. So it makes me nervous. I think what you're doing is you're updating a building, so the fact that you might put in gas lanterns, and you may do it, which is fine, but I just think it's trying too hard, and it's going back much further than this building is supposed to be. That's all. I mean, it's just too dated. It's the wrong decades. And it looks like some of the other lighting inside is a little bit more industrial. I'm looking at some of the pictures. That's all, so I'm like, I don't understand why you would have a different era in different areas. The deli entry or the addition, is it supposed to be a different face entirely?
Entirely.
It's a different face entirely. I don't think there's any reason for you to try to match the white. The white pictures you've used as inspiration are wood. This isn't wood. So I don't know why you would really try for a match at all. Make it its own unit, its own front, and I prefer the dark. Music up on top, non-amplified, acoustic sounds wonderful, but I understand why loud music isn't allowed. Anyway, I don't know if that helped our group at all.
I think those are good comments.
Yeah, it doesn't always have to be consensus. Sometimes, different viewpoints lead to better outcomes. So thank you.
Okay, and I just wanted to thank the applicants for responding to all our comments. I think the landscape plan is fantastic. I think you've done a great job. I will not miss the mural, but I'm sorry if you're sad about it. The gas lantern fixtures, I'm sort of torn on too. We put them in recently on a job, and they blow out when the wind kicks in, and then it's a pain to get somebody, and it's not something that people are used to dealing with, especially in a property where you're not, maybe having somebody on task to do that. If you'd like to do it, I'm not opposed to it. I just know that they can be problematic. I think the landscape fixtures are appropriate and both in style and quantity. I think they're great. I too prefer the charcoal color next door. I think it should be different. It's a different use and different thing. The script for the sign, I agree with Board Member O'Connor. I really like it just the way it is. I'm a little sentimental too about it. I think the community is in general, but nobody's really addressed what we're going to do with the cocktail sign down below. I don't know if that's going to stay. Nobody's even brought that up. I think, if anything, the scale could maybe come down a little bit. It's a little, it's the spirit of it being close to that, I think is good, but I think it could come down a little bit, but I think it's, would be a nice homage to what was here, and we're all very fond of our little town, and I think we want to keep some things the way they have been, just if we can.
So, Chair, I was going to see, it hadn't been asked yet, but do we know, I know we're not sign expert here, but do we know, like, if you chose a font and you went in your font book, right, and found something that was close to that font, can you just send that to the sign company and can they manufacture the sign based on like a standard font, like a PostScript,
Yes,
Adobe
absolutely.
PostScript? So I'm wondering if that's what makes it seems like there's consensus there. I'm wondering if so dimensionally shrinking it down to more match what they're proposing in terms of the size of it, but see if we can, instead of the banana, well, I guess we didn't have complete consensus. So we can keep that in there too, but that would be potentially an option to find a font that matched, if that was the board's consensus in their
And
motion.
also do it without having a font that matches and just scan that exact one, clean it up, make it smaller.
Could you? Yeah, I have no idea.
We don't-
But it sounds like everybody's in agreement, including Board Member Wolf, that the font size can be reduced. Like, it's a little, probably too large, right, out of proportion. Okay.
Is it appropriate for us to respond to some of these things, because there's...
It was mostly positive, so if you want to,
Go for it.
I know that it's...
ruin what's
If you
going on here,
If you want to stick your
go
foot in
right
your mouth,
ahead.
that's fine.
I really, I don't want to stick my foot in my mouth, but I'd like to know that we have some finality in the decision-making. So we're not opposed to using a non-gas fixture in the alleyway. The fixtures that are on the side are not gas, they're electric. And we would probably be using
Industrial type.
yeah, that's an industrial fixture, which is also the same over the market. The two fixtures at the front of the building, we would like those to be gas if we could have that, and we would appreciate the board's support on that. I think everything that Mr. Wolbrandt said, we're comfortable with. I think that his acknowledging that the scale of the existing sign is what's probably not right for us from a design perspective. So reducing that, we do think that a relief and making it out of metal is important rather than a painted sign on the building. So we feel pretty strongly about that. Other than that, I don't think that there's any real discourse between what anybody's offered up today and.
So we'll let Yeah,
the color of the annex, I think that we could, we have 5 paint colors that we proposed, and I think that if we used one of the warmer whites or something close to that, that would work as well and still achieve the goal.
We have 2 votes for color, for more gray, darker.
Correct. We would just, there's a Stonington gray that Benjamin Moore has. It's a little bit darker. There's a subtle ways for us to complement the buildings, or contrast and also complement each other. The intention was not to match it exactly. The texture of the buildings are such that they're not going to match exactly anyway. So I think we're all in agreement.
So we haven't got to a motion yet, but we may want some clarifying on the gas. Are the gas lamps under the terrace appropriate near the entry versus the one on the Yucca side? We might want to confirm what we're doing with the gray color up above. Are we going darker? Are we going with the Benjamin Moore Classic that's been called out? And we might want to just resolve once and for all the rear gas lamp. I know what my preference would just be to match the one on the 7th Street elevation to keep it simple, but it's not up to me. So, because as I'm recording the comments, I'm just not sure we have complete clarity on what way to go with those 3 items.
Can I comment to that? I think.
Yeah, they haven't made their motion yet, so if
Okay.
you can get us closer to
So
something
with-
that's.
With regard to the fixture at the rear, that same fixture comes in electric. So it doesn't have to be a gas-fueled fixture, it can be an electric fixture. So our proposal there would be just regular lamps.
There are LEDs that flicker like
Yeah,
gas.
exactly. We would do the same.
I mean, so we can
Yeah.
cut it down the middle there, and go electric and try to make it look like gas.
Happy to do that in the rear. Love to have gas in the front.
Right.
I would like to make a motion to give final approval to the project with the rear electrical fixture, rear lighting fixtures to be electric, with the 2 entry fixtures being gas, and with the color at the adjacent building being darker.
And darker,
Yeah, what about our 3rd floor?
darker than.
And darker at the 3rd floor
So
as
we've got
well.
the classic grade now specified, and there was some talk about maybe it can go any darker.
That's right,
Darker,
Yes.
just darker.
darker.
You want to see it again darker, or just a shade, a tone?
No,
Okay.
you can see it again darker.
And the sign.
Can we specify a color?
Do you have your swatch?
I do. There's Stonington gray right there. So that's Benjamin Moore.
So which one's the base color?
The base color is the classic, or the,
Classic white,
right.
this one versus that one.
Oh, yeah.
Call it out to me. Richard, what's it called?
The base being Stonington gray for the mechanical at the 3rd floor?
No,
Is that
the
what it is?
second-
Sorry.
The 3rd floor walls.
Floor,
Third floor walls,
3rd floor walls.
yeah.
Stonington gray.
So rooftop, right, is how we expressed it. Rooftop elements.
Would you use that same thing on the annex?
No.
Okay.
The sign,
Okay, and again.
Okay, as we saw, right.
I defer to Richard.
this motion has gone on too long. Should I start over?
No, we got it.
We got
Okay.
1, 2, 3, now we're on to
All right,
sign. We're on
now
to
the
start.
sign shall remain the scripted font to match existing, to be done in metal at a diminished scale from the existing.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Wait, hold on a second. What color is the whole building?
Classic white,
Classic white.
upper left.
The classic white.
Cloud white. I'm
Cloud
sorry, the
white.
whole building is cloud white.
Sorry,
Cloud white. And
And-
you guys were suggesting the.
Stonington gray.
which
We-
would look-
we originally-
Which would look black.
No,
And
well,
look really dark at night.
our original proposal was classic gray, which the board feels is a little too light. And we are proposing to substitute the classic to Stonington, which is darker. It is dark.
Yeah, and you've got planning commission conditions on that too. It's not just us, if I remember right. So they wanted to go darker.
That's correct.
You can't go the medium gray owl or something?
Sure,
The Stonington is just gonna be so dark.
I agree.
So dark.
So what,
The minute the sun goes
Will
down,
you
it's gonna
propose
look like a
a-
black.
What was the middle one? What was that?
what are you proposing as the compromise in
Well, I'm the new
between?
person,
I-
so
no,
I
you're-
would
you're
go
valid.
the classic gray or the gray owl, that's half, it's less. I
The
mean, it's
gray owl.
definitely a
Can we
different
look at
shade,
this?
but it's a,
There's the gray owl.
Looking for it.
Could I modify the motion
Maybe a little too cold.
to reflect
We're good on the sign, though.
a compromise on the color to say that the recommendation is that color, but
What's it called?
Gray owl.
Gray owl.
staff has the ability to adjust.
Okay.
I'm good with your amendment of my motion.
So we need
It
a
leaves,
second.
it leaves
So it's the
opportunity.
planning commission that's really choosing.
Well, yeah, as a result of how these things get ordered, sometimes they weighed in on the.
We need a second.
So there's a commission.
He already.
He did second? I didn't hear that.
Pat,
With the
Seconded.
revised, he second with the revised motion.
with the revision, have
Okay.
you seconded?
Yes.
Gonna look there.
Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Okay. Some of you can leave, but some of you
Go.
need to stay. You are one of those. You're the chair.
Which one, though?
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much,
Thank you.
everybody. Pleasure seeing you all again.
More to do.
Item number 3, Madam Chair.
Item number 3, there's no number 3.
Back
Other
page.
business? No. Other business, consent calendar,
I have no other business.
consent.
Backside, we got
calendar, nothing?
minutes.
Minutes. I move to accept the minutes as presented.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Done. Matters presented by staff, we already did.
Yes, we did. Nothing referred by council or commission. Matters by staff, we completed. Anything from
Matters
the
by
board?
board members?
Not me.
Seeing none.
None?
Attendance of board members for the next meeting,
Okay,
which looked
and
like
on
it
that
was
note, you should
canceled.
have seen the cancellation. Yeah, we were hoping to get at least 2 items on to the 27th. That didn't happen. We may or may not, we have nothing hard on the 13th, March 13th, which would be the next, because we're not going to go on the 27th, so the next would be March 13th. Maybe something, we'll keep you posted. For sure, the 27th, we've got 3 items parked there. So it's a maybe on the 13th and a pretty for sure on the 27th. So if you get March 13th, maybe, yes, March 27th. So if you can plug that in your calendars and let us know if there's any issues. I know sometimes getting that far out, you might not know what your plans are at that point, but if you can just let us know.
Okay.
Now, are we still doing the joint meeting on the 18th?
What
Yeah,
was
it's a training thing.
Yeah, oh, that's right. Yes. So this would be, my calendar is just for scheduled ARB meetings. My dates.
Okay.
The answer is yes, though. I think.
27th. And there's a special meeting tomorrow by the city council if you didn't
Saw
catch
that
wind of
for
that.
the Bluffs.
It's kind of a feel-good thing, so it might be cool if anybody can attend. It'll be down at the end of Carpinteria Avenue. Not to steal the thunder.
Right.
Sounds like a pretty...
Where are you talking?
All the way down until you can't go down Carp Ave anymore.
The wine center?
Roy Lee is doing a little.
We don't want to steal
preservation thing.
steal the thunder, but it's a very cool thing for the community.
Very cool. All right, well,
Thank
I'm
you all,
gonna
and
adjourn the
again,
meeting.
thank you, board member Wolf.
If you guys turn off your mic, I wouldn't mind asking you guys questions.
Are we adjourned?
Yeah, we're adjourned.
Okay.